Thank you and welcome to Indaba. You've been here a couple of days, but it's always great to see our partners from trade and from the media as well, coming through and really interacting with us. The trick with these trade shows, well, first of all, trade shows are getting more and more difficult to run globally at the moment. They are expensive to run, and everyone's questioning the ROI around it, right? So can there be better, quicker ways of doing it, etc., etc.? And I think in our view, it probably can be a reasonable debate for those trade shows that are really mature, if I put it that way, in those mature markets. But we still are very much a very interactive, touchy feel, smell, taste, and that's important for us as well. And the trick, however, is to make sure that every year you come up with something new that's different, that adds on to your kaleidoscope of what South Africa is. And hopefully you've picked up a couple of new things this year, and happy to take any questions this year.
It all looks good this year.
Yeah. It all looks good. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, you obviously picked up that our theme this year is the Mandela Centenary. And then what we've done around these, we would have turned 100 years. We've come up with 100 sites and experiences across the country, right? And each site tells a different story or adds onto the story of around Mandela. And we've literally gone from the most obvious, where he was born, Robben Islands, to quite unknown, interesting places, like where he went for his favorite cup of coffee, as an example, right? But it's almost like, I don't want to use the word pilgrimage, but it's almost like how do you follow Mandela's footsteps, and each side you pick up something new, so it's educational and informative and entertaining at the same time as well.
So from the point of view of the UK market, when our interest is increasing numbers,
Yeah.
we have a real problem, we have our own problem in Europe at the moment,
Yeah.
UK and Ireland, obviously aware of that,
Yeah.
and our pound is,
Yeah.
the rand is getting stronger
Yeah.
against the pound.
Yeah.
So we are finding in South Africa that although your food and wine are wonderful, the actual accommodation is costing us a lot of money, and it's actually quite, we're finding it very expensive, hotels and lodges.
Yeah.
And possibly not your fault,
Yeah.
it's possibly the UK pounds, because we're obviously in a sort of bad situation.
Well, it's twofold. It's twofold. The first one is the difficulty in South Victoria is we are promoting a product we're not selling.
Yeah.
Right? So we're no control over how much that lodge charges, an example, right? However, what we are doing is interacting with them on a regular basis, that look at things from the perspective of the consumer or the target audience that you're looking at, and understand where they are coming from as well. Currency fluctuations are absolutely not in our control on both sides, right? But remember, at times it works better for us because it just swings the right way, but at times as well we've got to be able to adjust from net on that side. So I mean, we did some calculations just to look at some different markets, just from the currency fluctuation. So whilst at a product level, the year-on-year increase was probably about 3-4% as an example, right? However, from a consumer side, it's something like 20-25%, right? Just from the currency fluctuation. So, you got to take this into account and kind of and balance it from that perspective, and it becomes a volume value trade, right? So, do you want 100 people at $1,000 each, or do you want 500 people at $450 each? And as we introduce more products and experiences in, they start to give those traditional product places some competition, right? In terms of competition in terms of the pricing, the value proposition, and everything else there. I know some of the German guys are telling us is that the band that is a big demand from them, and that's probably missing quite a lot, is a 3-star band, right? So yeah, you got great 5-star, great 4-star, but it's just one 3-star, right? Middle income, husband, wife with 2 kids coming in, boom, 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 so they're not looking for the glamping, you know what I'm saying, where there's air conditioning everywhere, but so I think that's the band that we're looking also to grow as a country as well.
Are you encouraged by developments on the visa situation, the children's visa issue, which has been riding? I know it's not your responsibility, but it's been riding around in the background of South Africa's tourism perception for the last couple of years.
Absolutely. I don't know if I told you this before, but as an economy, we are weaning ourselves off what has traditionally contributed to our economy, which was mining and a lot part of agriculture. Now to say, how do we introduce tourism into it? And what the new president has done is quite significantly say, well, let's double our numbers, literally. And he literally came to us and said, okay, what do you need in order to double your numbers? It's barriers, right? Self-imposed barriers. And visas is one of them, you know. So the issue is not about visas per se, but it's more the process of it. What you want is speed and what you want is certainty, right? I can't leave lodge my passport with you for 2 weeks and not know what's going to happen, as an example, right? And then obviously they're traveling with minors. Now you've got to do all of this at the backdrop of a very volatile world. You're trying to keep terrorists out, and child trafficking is on the increase, right? So the unintended consequence that you could have when you say open your borders, everyone comes, you invite, you know, feet that you may not want to have that side. So it's finding that balance, and I think that becomes quite key. But at least we're speaking about it, and there's intent to want to do something about it. So absolutely encouraged. I'll give you a simple example. So Russia, right? We waived visas in Russia a couple of months ago. 50% increase immediately. And we don't have direct flights to Russia, by the way. So you can kind of see and imagine. And you could also say we didn't have specific marketing activities in Russia, right? Then you look at a place like New Zealand, where they put visas against us and reciprocated, put visas on them down 24%, right? So you can clearly see with the stroke of a pen what you could do or not do, basically, from their perspective.
What else was on that list that you brought to the president of the things you need to do to double your tourism?
Sure. Definitely was about externally in terms of the barrier side. Connectivity became important. We are a long-haul destination. We're in the southern tip of the southern hemisphere. So you don't just think on a Friday, let me just go to South Africa, as an example. You know? So you want to make sure that you've got airline connectivity and frequency that's there. Very encouraged that BA is now flying direct to London as well. That adds more frequency into the country and more connectivity there. The other one that we added in was about regional integration. So meaning not just South Africa, but our neighbors as well. Because the way we package this place has always been about South Africa. And so, well, if you're going to come on a bucket list trip to South Africa, or Africa, and put it that way, how do you come to South Africa, go for a day to the Vic Falls, you know, in Zimbabwe, do the Okavango swamps in Botswana, Namib Desert in Namibia, and kind of fly to the block as well. And then issues around infrastructure became key as well, so that a place like Kruger, great place. Now, if you're going to double your numbers coming through there, you better make sure you double your effort in maintaining your roads, as an example. Otherwise, they'll just wear off over time. You better double your effort in making sure you've got more accommodation and everything else from that perspective. Safety and security became one as well. So make sure that we look after our tourists and kind of have those perspectives. But there were about 5-6 items that we actually gave to the president, and all well received. You know, it's the trick lies in the coordination amongst the government departments to make sure that they can come through. So like a Department of Transport is responsible for issuing tour operator licenses, as an example. So if they take their time, it becomes a problem. Oh, then the tour guides was also one of them as well. So we want to train a whole new cadre of new tour guides who are user-friendly, or fit for purpose rather, for the markets that we're looking at. So if we are looking at the German market, let's get some German-speaking tour guides, Chinese, Mandarin-speaking tour guides, and then you're going to get that alignment coming through. You guys don't have a problem.
And connectivity, could you give me a wish list of the sort of connectivity you'd like to see that South Africa does not have at the moment? City pairs that you'd like to see that you don't have at the moment?
I think the first one is about frequency, right? So we tend to look at markets from a hub perspective, right? And as long as there's frequency, You know, so basically on a daily basis, how many times a day you can get connectivity between South Africa and anywhere in Europe, as an example. So that becomes one. Now, in terms of the pairing themselves, it's the regional airlines that we also work with that actually start to siphon out from the international arrivals, as an example. This Durban one to Heathrow works quite well, even for Swaziland, even for Mozambique, just from proximity point of view as well. You know, so I think that one is becoming the feed side. Part of the things that we are doing is to showcase the other parts of the country that may not be as obvious, to our international travelers. Yes, you always lead with your iconic ones because any first-time traveler wants to get on a red bus and tick, 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 tick. But the more times you come, the more mature you become, and you almost want to peel this thing off in a layer and experience the different parts of the country, etc. So we really want to package all of that and stagger it up so that it becomes a much more better offering.
So are you saying you'd like to see more international flights into Northern Cape or places like that, or not as successful?
Probably not yet,
Yeah.
right? Because we simply just don't have the numbers to. Because it's got to, as much as we encourage airlines to fly, and there's also commercial considerations that are there. But we want to make seamless connections to the Northern Cape, right? So if Johannesburg is going to be the hub for it, is it every 2 hours or 3 hours you can get a flight, into the Northern Cape as well? And I think that's the thing. And it's always a chicken and egg, isn't it? Right? So which one comes first? Is it the airline or is it the traffic?
Are you worried about South African Airways? If anything happened to SAA, how bad would it be for South African tourism?
I worry about them because they're like my cousins, so it's in the same space. But at a very, very wide element, we're almost agnostic as to who brings the tourists in, as long as they come through. So you can walk if you want to walk, you can fly, you can drive, you can ship in, or whatever format is there. Now, if you were to ask me what I think the role of SA tourism should be, is really going on those routes that other private sector players want to go to and become the stimulus, as an example. So the Northern Cape is an example, right? Theoretically, the role of government or government's businesses is to address market failures. But where those market failures cease to exist, get out and go elsewhere, right? So therefore, you plug in this gap with the Northern Cape until private sector sees there's more opportunity, then they come in, then you move elsewhere. There's some other markets on the continent as well that they can kind of look at. So it's, I wouldn't like to see SAA compete with the other commercial airlines, but I'd like to see them start ones that actually benefit the country net, would I say.
And subsidising air routes has become quite the norm in international aviation. Is South Africa prepared to go into that business to make non-commercial routes feasible for airlines for the benefit it brings to your tourist industry?
I think sustainability is key there. How long are you going to subsidize for? You can't subsidize forever. Then that's artificial.
3 years,
You
yeah.
get what I'm saying? But what we do is how do we share the risk initially, all right? Where we see opportunity, the airline is kind of doubting and say, listen, let's share the risk initially. Because then we both are a vested interest to make sure that this route works. Either with market or up our marketing ante and everything else, and then make sure that they operate as efficient as possible. So we do have incentives that we certainly do look at, anything from landing fees or any other incentives there. We also encourage code-sharing, even with SAA as an example. So where they may not necessarily be flying, but at least they can do the selling of the seats through a code-share agreement as well.
So with the UK, obviously the big education push in the UK at the moment, the agents.
Yeah.
But with the UK element trade, how well are they doing at getting the message out to their customers that, the dispersal, for example, shoulder seasons,
Sure.
going out to the regions.
Sure.
How well are they doing that? What do they use?
I'm sure Tony can fill in the details, but I can tell you that the UK market is the largest source market for us, right?
The agents tend to focus on the same old, same old.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just-
And that's the part of the education that's kind of there, is that we you lead with what you know, you lead with what works, right? Up to a certain point where the marginal returns are kind of a bit flat. And then you need something else to add on from that perspective. I think that's the big drive now, let's say, as well. We want to show you the other parts of the country without necessarily ignoring the winners, if I put it that side. But there must be something for everybody, depending what you're looking for. It's a competitive space, right? And as I said earlier on, everyone's looking for something different.
Because the UK market is very, very heavy on repeats, isn't it? So it's perfect for you guys to get some of this product out.
You know what I'm saying? You can only go to Table Mountain so many times and say, well, I've taken a selfie over there, done, okay, what else is there? Taking a selfie, right? And, again, I mean, today's travelers are looking for different things. Immersion is one of them, right? People are looking for stories to tell. They're looking for things that evoke emotions, touch them as well. They're looking to discover, right? So again, how do we profile South Africa that you can consume it in different layers, just depending on what it is that you're looking for as well. That we're beyond just animals and a beach and a mountain. Right?
That was a lovely thing yesterday, like chatting to the guys at the West Coast and Corry, because
Yeah.
they're working really closely together.
Yeah.
They were talking about regional connectivity, new airport going into Corry. We're more than about flowers, but they were talking about storytelling and the sound bushman,
Yeah.
the paleontology route, and stuff,
There you
which
go.
is,
There you go.
and they're really realistic. This is about fifth time visitors.
Yeah. Again, fit for purpose, depending on first time visiting. I'm going to go watch flowers as an example from that side. But I think if you've been here a couple of times, you've been something different. Tony, everybody add on this?
The UK market, people think it's quite a mature market for travel to South Africa, but actually it's not, because they'll come the first time, and so they're still young to discover the whole of South Africa. So with our trade and our trade strategy and everything is to make sure we get out there, which is why we brought about 15 travel agents here. And my strategy is to make sure that my team gets out on the road. We'll be doing Facebook Live, just to teach more about South Africa. I'm planning on doing as many fan trips as I possibly can with travel agents out to the country, and to make sure that we get to see Limpopo, Mpumalanga, Northern Cape, etc. Because the agents, as someone said to me last night, we sell the world.
Yeah.
So for us, South Africa at the moment is Cape Town. So it's up to us to educate, but there's so many to educate. We've got to be really, really targeted in how we're educating. And I've got a really good team in place now, and there's a big focus on the trade specifically. So there's lots that's going to be happening this year.
This new flight into Durban, it's great news for you.
Yeah.
Is the city ready for 3 flights a week from the UK? And are you going to invest in Durban yourself?
Sure.
The seat in front is fantastic.
Yeah.
There's a lot still going on behind you in
Yeah.
the centre of Durban. It's great.
It's twofold. I think the first one is there's already a lot of traffic coming to Durban, but it's hubbing out of Johannesburg or Cape Town. So this now kind of gives it some direct connectivity. Second part is when you look at tourism, not just looking at leisure tourism, but also business tourism. We've got an international convention center, right? So therefore, when this ICC makes a bid for MICE business, it'll be a lot more competitive because of connectivity, as opposed to for the people who got a hopscotch to kind of get over here as well, right? Then there's also the trade perspective as well, right? Because there's, in the aircraft, there's also cargo that they'll be shipping between, the UK and South Africa. Whether we're talking agricultural stuff or manufactured stuff, something like that. So it's more than just the tourist side, right? But that said, however, is it's again, Durban is just more than just the beachfront. Just literally 45 minutes in, you're like in a different world, and we want to make sure that we bring in those elements in terms of the value proposition. Whether it's the parks, whether it is some of the cultural activities that you can have in there, all of them come into the mix from that side.
I'd like to ask about, so you mentioned the 100 sites of the centenary. Do you have any other plans throughout the year or big events that tourists might want to come to or anything?
Just again, sorry,
Do
the
you have
100
any,
sector.
do you have any big events, other than the 100 sites, do you
Yeah.
have anything else that tourists might be interested in coming to for the centenary year?
Oh, absolutely. this is the tourism angle we've taken to it. Government is celebrating, through a couple of activities and events and activations throughout the year as well. I think one of our big ideas at the time is like how we look at that. Actually, we looked at that Free Mandela concert that was in the 80s at Trafalgar Square. It's like, okay, how do we get that and have a concert on Mandela in Robben Island, as an example? And kind of get, literally, we sat on a table, scratched our heads a little bit, right? It's like, first of all, it's a UNESCO World Site, heritage site. What would that do, Second part, so kind of restrictions on that. But I'm trying to give you a sense that there's a lot of activations happening throughout that are not necessarily tourism driven, but are more from the different perspective. But we will latch on to them as South African tourism. We're investing quite significantly, and I think tomorrow you should come to it. There's an announcement we're making around an investment we made around technology, right? Whereby, we're still building it. It's almost like how do you get, for lack of a better word, call it an app, that one of the things you can get from there is a calendar of events in South Africa, right? You can search by city, right? So I'm in the Northern Cape, what's happening there this weekend? Or you can search by theme, so you're looking for, I don't know, sport activities or whatever it is. It gives you a bit of a sense. Because there's a lot happening, but there's no one repository they can go to in terms of being able to kind of get this and link to it.
I wanted to ask about how you're planning on regulating the shark diving and things like that as well, because I know before I came, a lot of people were telling me don't do it.
The sustainable tourism, and I've got a session basically after this on that one, is really becoming a big theme around the world. The astute traveler wants to be comfortable that their travel does not come at the expense of the environment or any other activity there, right? And it therefore becomes important around guidelines around these things. The problem is you can have 10 operators. None of them operate ethically. It's that one that actually messes things up and kind of gives that kind of a bad image. What we found is that not so much around shark cage diving, because that is quite regulated, right? And there's some clear guidelines. It's the wildlife one that becomes quite a contentious issue. Canned hunting, as an example, right? And as a country, we don't have any strict, firm guidelines around it. But what you've said, as a tourism fraternity, we want to make sure that we become in front of it. But we want to educate and inform people. Let me give you an example. So, when I grew up, I used to go to a circus, right? And in the circus, there were wild animals there, right? Literally. Things became, watched over, we all went, wow, how great it is, blah, blah. Nowadays, there are no animals in the circus, because we all know the backstory behind them, how badly they're treated and everything else. So when you inform the consumer, right, they exercise their right with what they spend on, as an example. And similarly, we want to start a drive where we inform and educate the traveler, that they could ask the right questions before they decide whether to patronize the place or not, basically. And I think that's the key one. And we're working on guidelines as we speak. Sometimes to get things legislated to government takes a long time, but there's nothing stopping the tourism fraternity. And the other one is that, like I said to the guys, is that we should be leading this from a global perspective, right? In terms of guidelines. We are the ones with the animals. Why am I going to wait for some of the US to come up with regulation or guidelines around us, as an example? Let's take the lead. Let's also, and it's not just about South Africa, but how do you set a standard globally that actually, can become quite something for people to follow as well. So you register those with the UNWTOs and stuff.
So going back to your bucket list, what is your number one investment going to be over the next few years?
Our number one investment? It's a very interesting one. the one that gives me most returns. So.
British travel agents.
And I'll tell you why I say that. It's the tourism space. It's constantly moving. Right? First of all, I mean, if you look at last year, I mean, the tourism industry grew by 7%. That blew our minds. We all expected 4%, almost double. The second part is that geopolitics also have a big role. You understand? So therefore, when there's a war in Syria, right? 5 million Germans that used to go to Turkey don't want to go there anymore. I can't plan for that, but I'm going to be able to respond to that when something happens. So therefore, how do you then divert your resources to actually target those 5 million German tourists who got nowhere to go and make sure a huge portion of them comes through on this side? You know, when something happens around the US, right? The US has lost market share whilst everyone else has gained, as an example. How do you make sure that you're able to respond basically to that? Whilst at the same time, not ignoring your traditional markets and now pay for your water and lights. You get me? So I think that's the dynamism that I speak of. The investments that we're also making as a country is in developing the hidden gems of this country. It's one thing to say I want people to go to the Northern Cape, but is Northern Cape ready for another 100,000 people? Do they have enough beds? Do they have enough experiences? Is there enough food to eat and everything else from that perspective, right? And you're talking about a town where that they claim to fame is having the world's largest man-made hole, right? Where the biggest diamonds are found. There's no more diamonds left, you don't think, right? So how do you turn a hole that was a mining focus into a tourist attraction? You get what I'm saying? So it needs some mind shift of the locals themselves. Because I said to them, well, instead of closing this thing down and looking at it, making it so, I turn it into a tourist attraction. Make it a site, right? In fact, I said to them, how about offering people a pan, right? That says, listen, you can buy this space for 1 hour. Whatever you find there that's of value is yours, right? So if you happen to find your diamond, well, geez, there. I can just see a lot of ladies shaking me away. but I'm just trying to give you a sense in terms of how, so investment is to go into destinations and make sure that they also become tourist hubs.
So it's with, you were talking about the tourism numbers obviously growing, but
Yeah.
obviously the UK is going to be down this year. And what would your message be for UK trade, like call to action? Obviously the Cape Town guys were saying, yeah, we're open for business.
Yeah.
They just kept coming out.
Yeah.
What's yours?
Well, we're only 4 or 5 months into the year, right? Yes, the numbers are looking a bit flat, but you've got to do two things. One is that you've always got to be present in your most important market. So even though the times may not be as good as previously, you can't now pull out and go elsewhere. Because once you exit, you're no longer top of mind in that market, right? So you've got to hold your ground. The second part is to be tactical, right? So again, moving from spraying and praying to be a bit more deliberate in terms of whom are you targeting, understand.
In terms of tactical thinking, tactical pricing, obviously we're talking about the rands, you know. And
There you go.
So, but at this moment, I mean, how?
Well, again, it depends. I mean, it depends on the local issues that are there as well. You know, so here's a big thing. So whenever we don't understand something about the UK, you know what happens? Just call it Brexit. Right? So put a Brexit sticker on it, right? So if no one can explain it, like it's a Brexit, effect. Like you don't know what you're talking about, right? But all I'm just trying to say is that looking at the local nuances of what's happening over there in the UK, relying on the team as well, who are best informed on the ground to make sure they can respond accordingly. Do we focus on the mature travelers who've been there 4 or 5 times and kind of really get the best from them, or do you look at a different market segment, newcomers in who are looking for a 3-star experience that gives you the volume? Because when we measure performance, it's both from a volume side and also from a value side, the spend as well, and just to kind of keep a balance on the two.
Because that's the difference, isn't it? Whether you view it as just a glitch, a blip, and just business as usual after that, it'll sort itself out, or you use it.
I have a hypothesis that there's so much more we can do. So our number one market, but I think there's so much more that we can do in there to really pull eke out some more market share there. You know? But again, I mean, I've got capable people on that side, and they sleep, eat, breathe thinking about how do we best get that done.
You were very proactive in your response to the Cape Town Water Day Zero message, which came right in the heart of the booking season. Looking back, is there anything you learned about the way people behave that surprised you from that entire experience?
Absolutely. I think the lessons are just not for us as a country, but I made a presentation on a DMO conference in the US 2 weeks ago about it, and it's all about crisis management, right? Key lessons over there is, in today's world, you can't ring fence messaging to only an audience. You know, so Day Zero was a scare tactic, very dramatic, for locals in Cape Town to know that, hey, be awake, there's water issues. The problem with it now is that it couldn't contain the messaging. It went, literally spiraled out and started becoming viral around the world. And now you're no longer in control of that messaging that took a life of its own. So we literally had to get on a plane and chase it and kind of pull it back and bring context to it. But it was important for us to be truthful and honest. And as much as you can say Cape Town's open for business, blah, blah, yeah, we're open for business, but not in the same way that we opened for business 2 years ago, right? Very different way. But we want to be open for business in a sustainable way. That says, even if it rains buckets tomorrow, we can never go back to the old way that we consume water. And what you've seen now, essentially around the country, it's the drought really isolated around Cape Town, but even in Johannesburg and even in Durban. We're all very much aware around water and how we should be conserving water. Then the lesson for the world was about, well, water issues are actually very topical at the moment, and how do we, as the tourism fraternity, really get our heads around it and make sure that we can become consistent around it. And literally, Cape Town, we're putting together a playbook for the world in terms of how they should respond around water issues. The tripolus comes in, because we're dealing with different players, politics come in, right? We're at a very local level, and they're trying to get the other party elected over another, so they blame the other one. So you've got to look through that noise and kind of make sure that the message lands globally. That actually you can shower when you're in Cape Town, that there is water to drink, and then there's no pandemonium around it. But however, this is just a new way that we're going to be consuming the place. And what you've seen is that people actually want to become part of the solution. They know what to do. Carbon emissions has been a big thing. People want to know that they want to travel, and then how they offset their carbon is like they plant a tree, as an example. Very therapeutic, but also very symbolical that they're doing something around it. I need to find something around water that people can do that is also physical.
There's some great initiatives.
There's been some great initiatives, yeah, but not easily satisfied. But yeah, there's been some, absolutely not. They take that away. I mean, there's, I think about a month ago, I saw in Cape Town that there's a water consumption app.
Yeah.
That tells how much water you've consumed for the day, right? Almost like how many steps you've taken, isn't it? Like, I think around Indaba, I've already hit my targets this morning already. It's like,
But
sorry, yeah.
Wrap that up
Okay.
now, but thank you so much, Lisa. And obviously, if you've got any other questions, follow up with me.
Absolutely.
Thank you for a great interview.
Thank you.
No, awesome. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.